What is up, everybody? Today is the second day of school, and I am yapping in my classroom again. And I want to talk about 5 things that I do to battle brain rot in my class. And brain rot is not something that is new for students that are coming back from summer break. Students have come back from summer break for decades now, and teachers had to review things, go back over classroom management. And I think now, when we see students on tablets, when we see students on video games, and just on screens in general, day in and day out, not really getting a whole lot of outside engagement, it does make it a little bit more difficult. When I came back from distant learning and the lockdown several years ago, I noticed that a lot of students, as many teachers have noticed, that students did not look like they were ever looking away from a screen. And those initial students, which honestly I will call probably the most difficult and probably worst class I've had in terms of a group, they were it was a very big challenge to get those students back on track. And it's been a lot easier. I've learned a lot of things, and I want to share those things with you today. Now, the first thing, I don't tend to battle the fact that these students are used to screens, so I have to supplement that into my classroom with video supplements. And with video supplements, I do feel like there is a lot of value there because students are already used to watching things on video. There's a lot of informative TikToks, Reels, and things on YouTube. And using videos in the classroom is not like a new thing. However, when it comes to students being used to watching and ingesting information, I think it's better to ride that wave and taper it off a little bit throughout the year and use it as necessary. I've always used videos in my classrooms, and before TikTok, it was always difficult to find something in short form, but we happen to live in that short form era where there's a lot of really great informational pieces that can be used through any subject. And what I love is that students already have that buy in of watching something in portrait mode on TikTok. And you can pull things directly from TikTok, and it will broadcast the little TikTok logo on that video. And there's a buy in already. Kids see that it's from TikTok, they're automatically going to watch it a little closer, and you can teach to that. You do want to taper that off, as I said. You don't want to just rely on that for the entire year. But that is something that I've used in my classroom to, slowly wean them away from screens a little bit more and make the class a little bit more entertaining. The second thing is drawing, art, and just overall tactile activities. This is something I had to learn over time. I've actually engaged my students with sketching a lot more in the recent years. 3 or 4 years ago, when I got one of my new classes, I made it a big point to introduce sketching into my daily curriculum. And I saw a big difference. Now, it wasn't just go sketch whatever you want. I used a lot of videos and tutorials on YouTube because I myself am not an artist in the grand sense that I've been classically trained, but I'm always willing to try to draw, and I've always enjoyed drawing things freehand. So, one thing that I do teach my students is that it's okay to make mistakes. And the value that I've had in showing students just sketching in general is, hey, you know what? You make a mistake, we're going to see it through. And I've encouraged students to use pens. They can basically use whatever they want, but I've encouraged students to use pens because it gives them that opportunity to experience a mistake at a low stakes activity. And I've seen a big difference. I see students applying that philosophy or that idea to them doing math, them doing writing, that it's okay to make a mistake. You just kind of have to see your way through it. And when it comes to brain rot, it really lends itself well to it because kids are, again, watching that video. They want to mimic what's in the video. I tend to use the series from the YouTuber Art for Kids Hub, and it's great. Kids want to do it. Kids want to learn. There's a lot of characters that they really like. There's a lot of things for older students to really do well, too. And everybody likes to doodle. Everybody likes to do art. And I think it's good that we're tapping into that a little bit more because I do think that ability to express ourselves in a digital age where it's primarily almost digital in everybody's lives, completely digital, is being slowly withered away. And I do see a lot of resistance towards that. I see a lot more people doing physical things of that nature, and it's good to introduce them to the classroom. And when it comes to tactile activities, that could be with like math manipulatives, bringing in certain, props, counters, things for people or students rather to experience the lesson with their hands as opposed to just writing it down. I think that is a better buy-in. This is not like new. However, in this day and age, it's absolutely important. The third thing is just boredom exercises in particular. And that kind of goes hand in hand with my fourth topic of mindfulness. But at least with boredom, I think adults, students of any age, really need to learn how to be bored for prolonged periods of time. I think back to my summers as a kid, and even though I did have a PlayStation, I had a Nintendo, and I didn't really have limits on those things. And I could watch movies, right? I didn't have limits on those things, but after a certain point, you just get bored of it. And the thing with tiny screens on devices and our phones is they're meant to make us addicted in a way a bag of Doritos will make us addicted, and we can't just stop, right? I am absolutely sick of using my phone day in and day out, but it's really difficult to stop once you started going. And I'll teach students of the mental cigarette that it is. And students need to relearn how to be bored. And those summers that I spent as a kid, I would often get bored enough to where I was playing with the doorstopper and making little tunes and songs on it, talking into the fan to change my voice, looking at the ceiling fan because it was clicking and seeing if I could catch some sort of song. Things like looking at the patterns in the wall to see if there's little faces or shapes in there, in terms of the texture on the wall. These are things that have kind of been lost to time. Students don't really do that with that intent anymore. I mean, it's not like I went out to do those as well, but those boredom exercises of just being bored, and what do you do when you're bored? What do you do when you have that downtime and you don't have a phone next to you? Has to be trained from any age because we are kind of losing that as a skill. As far as mindfulness my fourth one, I do think that mindfulness is something that, I've seen taught in schools. I've been using mindfulness in my class for the entirety of my teaching career. Admittedly, I started using mindfulness to just pass the time because as a first year to, early in my teaching career, it's really hard to fill up those 6 hours and just go, 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 go. So I would use mindfulness and I would get the kids to calm down a little bit more. But over time, I started to really value and actually do it with a little bit more of an effect. So we will take, more tiny breaks through the day, maybe, 2 to 5 minutes, and eventually work ourselves up to a longer break because we come back to school when it is far hotter than it really should be. I mean, it's on some summers that we come back, it's close to 104 degrees outside. So the kids are looking forward to cooling down on their desks, and we can use that and do some mindful breathing. We can use that to do some eye exercises where, if our eyes are getting tired, we can be mindful and, stretch out that ocular muscle or nerve or whatever it is. And I think the kids really enjoy that, and I do see them coming down from that a little bit more. And that just goes to the exercise of being bored as well, in terms of, I'm bored right now. I'm going to do some breathing. I feel a little anxious coming in to the school right now. My mom was yelling at me or hurrying us along. And it's time for me to just like relax myself and give myself that gift. I'm personally very transparent with my students in terms of like my own anxieties. And I'll tell them as soon as I come in, I'm coming in today and I feel just this knot in my heart that only happens from anxiety, and I need to calm myself down. So if you want to join me, you can be mindful with me. Because otherwise I'm just grouchy and, irritated for the duration of the time until lunch. So I think students are a little bit more on board with that and a little bit more willing to, join you in those activities if they see you as an adult or you as the teacher joining in and partaking in them as well. My screen went off, so let me get this here. But when it comes to mindfulness, I do think that We need to integrate it a little bit more, especially with students that are, again, coming into that classroom after summer. And the fifth one is valuing learning outside and just being outside. Students, I mean, at least where I live, it is very hot a lot. So unless students are actively going swimming or on vacation, you're probably not going to see a lot of kids outside just running around because it gets close to, again, like 104 sometimes. So valuing that time outside is something that I want to put in my classroom as far as like actually going outside to learn. I think that, at least from my experience and what I've seen from other teachers and what I've learned, is that we're kind of afraid to make mistakes and have students do things the wrong way. But I do think training students to be okay with those mistakes, as I've said for sketching, and saying, you know what, we're going to go outside. We don't have desks outside. Bring something hard to write on, and maybe your paper flies away. Maybe you make a mistake and you forgot to bring an eraser. That's okay, because going outside and getting that fresh air is something that kind of changes up the scenery a little bit. We don't have windows that open in my classroom, so I mean, you can imagine if the circulation of the air is not like up to par on some days, which it happens, the brain gets a little tired. And it's great to go outside. And even within my town, where we don't have those perfect days, we get maybe a total of like 5 a year of just like perfect weather. Value the bad weather. Right now it's like, it's not super hot, it's not as hot as it could be, but it's definitely windy. Some papers might fly away, and that's okay. That's being human. That's having the experience of a human being. My paper flew away when I was a kid. If it's a little too cold, maybe it's too wet and cold outside. Maybe there's water in the grass and your pants get a little wet because you sat in the grass. Like, those are human experiences that I don't think most kids have all day, every day. And we kind of need to bring that back, and we kind of need to allow them to have that, because they're just not getting that opportunity anymore. But those are the 5 things I'm doing to battle brain rot. I really hope you've made it through my video, and I appreciate it that you have. So please leave a comment, subscribe, let me know what you think below. And I do, again, appreciate you making it this far if you have. Thank you so much for watching Yapping in My Classroom, and I will catch you on my next video. Peace.